Hello, CSE. This is the lesson for April 2nd. We're talking today about connotation and tone as we study Jimmy Santiago Baca's Cloudy Day. We're going to start by getting some background to Jimmy Santiago Baca. And remember, to get here, just go to page 373 in your online textbook, which is accessible through Google Classroom. It is important to get his background because this is an autobiographical poem, so many of the themes and important ideas, important subjects do come from his own experience. So this is important for us to know about. So Jimmy Santiago Baca was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Abandoned by his parents, Baca had a difficult childhood. In his early 20s, he was arrested and subsequently spent over 5 years in prison. Though locked up, Baca realized the liberating power of language when he began to read and write poetry. Baca has since written several volumes of poetries, essays, and memoirs, and a screenplay. Cloudy Day first appeared in Immigrants in Our Own Land, Baca's first book of poetry, which was based on his time in prison. So some important things here. He did spend time in prison, right? He spent 5 years in prison, and he learned, right, the liberating power of language when he began to read and write poetry. That's a big hint for the theme of this piece. So keep that in mind as we go through this and as we read. So Cloudy Day, we see here, and there's an image here of barbed wire and a prison wall. So this should definitely get us situated in the context of what the speaker here is talking about. And I say speaker because we always call the person who's actually saying the words in the poem the speaker, not the poet himself, even if it is autobiographical. So that's why I'm going to be referring to it as speaker. As I go through this, I'm going to be completing a demo of the graphic organizer for this, which will help you on the quiz that you're going to take after reading. So as we go through, we will be collecting words and phrases that have strong connotations or emotional meanings, and then we're gonna clarify what those connotations are. This will help us narrow down and sort of articulate for ourselves what the tone is of this piece. So let's get started. It is windy today. A wall of wind crashes against, windows clunk against, iron frames as wind swings past broken glass and seethes like a frightened cat in empty spaces of the cell block. All right, so we're getting started here. Kind of some harsh imagery, right? That's descriptive language, gives us specific sense impressions. And one of the phrases that comes up to me or hops out at me right away is this iron frames image, right? Makes me imagine, a prison space, and iron bars and iron frames. And as I'm thinking of the connotation, thinking back to the mini lesson that I gave you guys attached to the lesson for today, right? We want to think first, is this negative or positive? And I think we definitely think of this as negative. This is not uplifting, not an uplifting image. It's definitely more of a downer than that. So negative, but then we want to clarify it a little further, right? What specifically can we say about the emotional meaning here? Well, it's negative in the sense that, the speaker feels trapped or confined. There's this hard iron confining space that he finds himself in. This is not uplifting at all. So that definitely is our more specific connotation. Moving on, and here I'm just writing the line number so that I specifically know where I can come back to where in the poem this occurs. Another word that hops out at me is seethes. So seethes, you can imagine that like hissing, a cat hissing. And indeed, like they use the simile, he uses the simile like a frightened cat, right? So seethes is definitely a word that has an emotional meaning behind it. That's from line 4. This is another negative word. And as the simile indicates, right, this is indicating that the speaker might be feeling frightened, but a cat might also hiss in anger, right? And that's not just from this word, right? We can we can take that away. We can say that maybe there's some anger behind that as well. So we're getting some negative language coming through here that is definitely contributing to this overarching tone of confinement and the feelings that go along with that. All right, so let's continue reading here. In the exercise yard, we sat huddled in our prison jackets on our haunches against the fence, and the wind carried our words over the fence while the vigilant guard on the tower held his cap at the sudden gust. As I'm reading this, I see huddled, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm trying to imagine what that looks like. I imagine, people sitting low to the ground. Haunches, means sort of on the thighs and knees, sort of sitting down low. So huddled definitely conveys an image with a strong connotation there. It's definitely a negative feeling that I'm getting from that. And I think, I think when you're down, when you're physically lower to the ground, I'm thinking that this. It almost seems like there's someone pushing down on them. There's this feeling of oppression, right? That they're trapped. So definitely conveys that to me. I'm leaving a fourth spot here that I'm not going to fill out now. You can definitely collect. There are other terms here, many others that you can select from these first two stanzas to get more connotations, but we will move on to sort of see how this tone develops, and that is what this second row is for down here. Lines 13 through 35, we're going to collect more words that have connotations, see how this develops. So I could see the main tower from where I sat, and the wind in my face gave me the feeling I could grasp the tower like a cornstalk and snap it from its roots of rock. All right, and phrase that jumped out at me was the simile, right? Like a cornstalk, from line 16. And that simile, we have a different feeling here, right? This main tower, which is maybe made of concrete or stone. I'm thinking to myself, what would cause someone to be able to think of that as a cornstalk, which is this weak, it's obviously a plant which a child could easily just crack off, right? And I'm thinking, wow, this person's really feeling better about the situation. This seems better in the sense that the speaker feels more empowered, right? There's a feeling of power that he feels strong enough that he can reach out and snap this big stone or concrete structure like a cornstalk. So something's changing here, right? And we see the image of the wind here is playing a role in that. In the beginning, the wind was, an oppressive force here. And I'm sorry, that jumped a little bit. Is an oppressive force, sort of, beating against the confining walls of the prison, and they're huddling against it in the prison yard. But here, it's giving him the feeling that he can take up this whole tower and snap it like a cornstalk. So let's keep reading, see how that develops. The wind plays it like a flute, this hollow shoot of rock, the brim girded with barbed wire, and with a guard sitting there also, listening intently to the sounds as clouds cover the sun. All right, another image there that I'm thinking, so another simile actually, wind plays it like a flute. So yet more positive, and I believe that's line 18, more positive connotations there. And again, feeling this feeling of empowerment, empowered, spell it right, and freedom as well, right? So, music, I'm thinking someone's feeling free to express themselves. I'm thinking that this is the wind that's feeling free to go through and around, just like air would through a musical instrument. And that's the image that I'm getting from that. So those are two good examples of sort of from the second section here, what sort of connotations we're getting. And there definitely seems to be a shift in the tone, right, from trapped and confined to empowered and freedom. And that plays pretty importantly into the theme. So let's continue on. I thought of the day I was coming to prison in the backseat of a police car, hands and ankles chained. The policeman pointed, see that big water tank, the big silver one up there sticking up? That's the prison. So that was a little flashback talking about how he just came here. And now we're coming back to the present. And here I am. I cannot believe it. Sometimes it is such a dream where I stand up in the face of the wind, like now. It blows at my jacket and my eyelids flick a little bit while I stare, disbelieving. The third day of spring, and 4 years later I can tell you how a man can endure, how a man can become so cruel, how he can die or become so cold. I can tell you this. I have seen it every day, and still I am strong enough to love you, love myself and feel good, even as the earth shakes and trembles, and I have not a thing to my name. I feel as if I have everything, everything. All right. And so you definitely, certainly in this last stanza, there's this feeling, especially with everything, there's this expansive sense of, I'm sensing the speaker has everything, while he felt so confined, so closed in at first, now there's this expansive sense of everything is his. Everything has come to him. And I'm asking myself, I wonder, how did he come to feel that way? And the answer to that question really is going to be what plays a critical role in coming up with the theme. So I'm going to let you guys, there are more, in lines 13 through 35, there are more words with strong connotations. I will leave those to you to find. But let's just talk about some subjects that are important here. And really, you can use this right-hand column to help you with that. A lot of these words actually do center in on important subjects. So starting from the earliest ones, right, we saw being confined. So confinement, certainly an important subject. And then from the latter section, right, empowerment is also an important idea. And I think also I was pointing up some aspects of language here. This is there's a lot of strong imagery in this piece. There are a lot of similes. This is a very lyrical, so lyrical kind of means emotional first person, and very descriptive account of this person's experience while behind bars. And I think language was incredibly important to causing this development as this person goes, right? He is able to describe things the way that he is because of language, and we know that from his biography as well. And I include this just as a big hint for what ultimately your theme statement will be. Please try to find some way to link language in your theme statement, link language to either empowerment or how it affects one's feelings of confinement, right? That is certainly something, language is certainly something that ties this all together, and wind and language are very closely related here. Wind can certainly be seen as perhaps a metaphor for language and what it's doing throughout the piece, so that's something to keep in mind as well. So at this point, you are at your liberty to complete the rest of this graphic organizer if you want to print it out, or if you want to complete it digitally as I have done. It's up to you. This will be very helpful for the quiz. Please do feel free to reach out to me by email if you have any questions about this. And yeah, good luck on the quiz, and that is it for today.